W240 GFFM 95.9 Freeport, New York. You just looked down your phone. You did it again. You're flying down the road with 3 months of steam. And the text takes your eyes off the road for an average of 5 seconds. At 55 miles per hour, that's not enough to travel the length of a football field and cause some serious damage. Turn it off. Trust me. Whatever it is, you'll live.
I'm ready.
National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Also demonstrating kids.
Oh, we got some Christmas music going on over here today. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Real Estate Plate. As always, I'm your host, Nick Sakals, coming to you live from the WGBB studios here in Merrick, New York. And I hope everybody had a great week. We had a lot of rain over the weekend, but you know what? It was needed. Overall, I can't complain. It's getting a little bit cold, but at the same time, it could be a lot worse. We're in December. We got winter in New York. And, you know, aside from coronavirus, I think everybody can't complain as far as the weather's concerned. But that being said, we got a jam-packed show this week. I have a lot, as always, that I wanted to put into the content, and we will probably not have it all in, but we'll get as much as we can and make sure that we give it as much attention as possible to each topic. But as always, when there's not enough time in the actual show itself, we always turn around and do separate side videos where we're able to focus on each topic the way it needs to be. On that thought, I am actually very thankful to everybody that has already visited the channel for Landlords Are Human. We have already gotten quite a few subscribers on that one, and I'm hoping to see that one grow. For everybody that's tuning in for the first time, we just opened up a new channel called Landlords Are Human on our YouTube pages, and that channel itself is dedicated solely to landlord rights, making awareness of some of the hardships that landlords are dealing with. So you should definitely check it out. Not during the show, because we're live right now. After the show, go check it out. And we should be, you should find a lot of content there. And the thing that makes that channel a lot different from our normal channel, the Real Estate Plate, is the fact that it's not only our original content. So if you get sick of seeing me and hearing my voice over and over again, you're not going to be seeing only me on there. We're actually compiling playlists, and we're actually doing all the legwork for everybody else that might be listening or watching, and found all the videos, all the content that's out there available, helping landlords. And we're just making sure that we're making it a hub for people to be able to see all this type of content. So again, I'm not going to dwell on that one. The channel, the name of the channel is Landlords Are Human. Check it out. After you, of course, check out our own site and subscribe to our channel, check that one out and show your support for landlords. On that topic, I am actually going to dive in a little bit on current events as far as the eviction moratorium is concerned. I'm going to dive into what's happening in today's real estate market, especially in our region. And I'm also going to get into a couple things that I found a little bit troublesome, a little bit disturbing, a little bit questionable within the MLS board practices. But I'll dive into all that as we go into the show. That being said, I wanted to remind everybody that this is a Amazon giveaway video. We're going to be giving away one Amazon gift card for every 100 likes that we receive on these videos, up to 500. That's up to 500 likes. So that means 5 Amazon gift cards are going to be given out for $25 each. So the thing that makes this contest a little bit unique is even though you might be able to win that first Amazon gift card, your name gets thrown back into the pool and you'll be able to have a chance to win another one from the same video contest. So that's a pretty cool thing that could happen potentially, theoretically. If somebody's really, really lucky, they could win all 5. In addition to that, I just wanted to make sure that I made the rules really, really clear to everybody. Again, all the winners are basically thrown, all the people that have put likes in the Facebook page, I can see, so I could put them in a pool. However, from the YouTube world, I can't see the likes. So in order to qualify, you have to do one of two things. Either you have to put a comment in along with your like, or you have to send me a screenshot showing that you like the page, and that automatically puts you into the drawing. And I'm wishing everybody the best of luck. I hope you got a lot of winners out there, and we'll keep doing this all month long. The only thing that I'm going to make a point of, because there was a little bit of confusion last week when I first announced the contest, is that in our series of videos called Landlord's Side of the Story, they will not be part of the contest. And the reason why they're not going to be part of the contest is for the reason that I don't want to put a gimmick, or I don't want to cheapen the value of what we're doing with those videos. I want to make sure that the landlords that are being represented there and are speaking, and the messages that we're putting out there are to an audience that is out there just for the sheer reason of actually just getting their word out. I don't want them to feel that we have some other agenda going on with those videos. So I want to make sure that everybody is clear on that and they understand that. I'm sorry if there's any kind of confusion with that, but the Amazon giveaway will be in all our other videos. That being said, why don't we just dive into something that I guess everybody wants me to start talking about, and that's a continuation of the conversation we had last week on the eviction moratorium. Now, everybody saw me getting a little bit animated about it. I got a little bit, pretty intense about that situation. And that's because I'm really and truly passionate about it. I really feel that landlords' rights have been taken away completely. And I feel that many people are just hearing one side of the story. And that's the reason we made that whole video series of Landlord Side of the Story. Because when you're doing a Google search and you're doing an internet search anywhere, or you're trying to flip through the news channels, what you're hearing and what's coming to you constantly is a lot of dialogue, a lot of content, a lot of horror stories coming from the tenant side of the point of view. And I understand that that's media trying to go for the sensational type of setting. They trying to provoke people, and they're trying to get ratings. But the right thing to do is give every side their opportunity to be heard on every platform. And that's clearly not happening. And slowly but surely, through a growing group of landlords across the nation, the word is being spread. And people are understanding more and more what's going on. You have an ecosystem that of tenants and landlords, government, business, local, national, that all needs to be clicking on all cylinders, and every part of that ecosystem needs to be contributing in its own way to be able to uh, make sure that there's not a failure in that system. Right now, there's a lot of chaos. There's not many things that are going according to plan and going the way they should be going. And one of the major issues is the fact that the landlords have had their hands tied. Um, for a lack of a better word, they've been financially neutered. And especially the landlords that don't have deep vaults of money and barrels of cash that they could go through to be able to sustain. Those landlords are the ones that are having the major issues. Now, I'm not saying that the landlords that do have money should still be put in a position of having to carry the weight for the rest of the society. I don't believe that either. But they're not being as affected as the ones that are on a smaller scope. I think all landlords of all sizes should be properly taken care of the same way the tenant side should be taken care of, the same way all the aspects of business and society should be taken care of in this pandemic that we're living in. But for some reason or another, it's the landlords that are getting the short end of the stick, and it's not appropriate. It's not right. And I personally don't believe it's even legal. But I don't know anything. Ask a lawyer. Ask the judges what's legal, what's not legal anymore. Everybody decides to make whatever rules they want and apply whatever rules they want as they seem fit. So that's what we're dealing with. So let me give everybody just an update of what's happening right now. If anybody saw, I hope actually everybody saw that last video we posted yesterday from the landlord side of the story, which was a story of a man named Rich Tyson up in Rochester, New York, who basically took things into his own hands as far as trying to address the government and wrote a direct letter to Governor Cuomo. And there's a series of small videos that he put up as update through his own social media, and I've had communication with him regarding that, and he's giving me updates, and he's going to be giving out another update very soon as well. But the short story is basically he's wrote numerous letters to the governor, and he's doing it the right way, by the way. If you're going to be sending any kind of letters or documents anywhere, especially these days, you better send them registered or certified. You want to have proof that you sent these letters out. So he's been sending this and basically getting lip service and non-responsiveness, which is not a surprise. Completely not a surprise. This is what everybody that has been trying to get some clear and proper communication from our local officials and our voted in officials with no proper responses. So it's not a surprise that he's being neglected, but he's not putting it down, and he's become a very great advocate for landlords as well. And I applaud him for doing what he can, because he's putting his neck on the line as far as putting it out there publicly and that kind of thing. And he's getting a lot of grief from the cancel red people and all those people. But you know what? Good for him continuing doing that. I'm going to continue to support him. I'm the same way I'm supporting all the landlords talking out right now. And on that whole concept of what I was just saying is that we are nearing the end of the eviction moratorium as we know it at this moment. If everything continues and there's no changes, it is officially over, especially here in New York, on January 1st. Which means everybody will have the opportunity to file properly if they haven't filed already, for the people that are not COVID afflicted, which is cloudy, because a lot of people have not signed the letters verifying whether they've been affected or not affected by COVID. So let's say we're starting from a clean state with everybody. Everybody's going to start filing as of January 1st, if nothing changes, which I feel might change again. Because don't forget, we've gone down this cycle a few times. Initially, the moratorium was to end in June. Then that was extended to August, I believe 20th. Don't hold me to the exact dates, but let's say to the end of August. Then after that, it was extended to October. And then after that, it was extended to the end of the year. And that's where we are right now. So we've had 4 extensions of this moratorium. And don't get me started on how angry I am with the whole way it's set up and that kind of thing, because I got into that last week, and I'm not going to get furious because it's too early in the show for me to go off on a rant and lose my train of thought, because I got other stuff I want to cover as well. And I'll get back into it at another time again. Trust me, I'm not letting this go, and I'm not going to drop the subject. I'm going to continue to be advocate for all landlords and for people that just feel that the right thing should be done. So if this extended moratorium ends as it's supposed to end, and again, I have my doubts. I really have my doubts that this will really hold and it will stay firm. Then what will happen is you're going to get an influx, a huge influx of filings to get hearings. And if that happens, don't expect a hearing date anytime soon. You might get a docket number, but that's what's happening with a lot of people right now. They're getting docket numbers and they're not getting hearing dates. So first of all, what's going to happen is all the people with the actual docket numbers that are waiting for hearing dates are going to be in line first. They're going to be the ones that are going to get the first hearings, and who knows when those are going to begin. And then everybody else is going to take their place in line. So theoretically, you might not get a hearing date. And you can say I'm being dramatic, and I'm exaggerating this whole situation. You might not get a hearing date for a month to 2 or even 3-4 months after you filed. And I promise you, I absolutely promise you that will be the case with a lot of people. Because there's just so much that's going to be flooded into the system right now. And there's not enough people to be able to maintain. You don't have the facilities to be able to maintain. And you have another issue. We're still dealing with a pandemic, and they might actually shut us down again. So they might not extend the eviction moratorium, but they might actually lock us down again. There's been talks about a 100-day lockdown or quarantine again. So if they shut everything down, do you think they're going to keep the courts open? Highly unlikely. They're basically going to shut us down, and then through a loophole of not being open, you can't get a hearing. So again, I don't want to be pessimistic. I want to try to be as optimistic as humanly possible. But that's basically what we're looking at, and that's the update on the eviction moratorium at this moment. But there's a couple of other things I just want to point out, and I actually want to make a point of. One of the things that we're seeing right now is a trend. There's a trend of people that are nearing this end of the eviction moratorium that have not been paying their rent, that truly don't have any kind of COVID related type of situation, and they were not paying rent solely for the reason that they got away with it and they couldn't pay. They didn't have to pay. So what's happening is they're doing almost a cash for key kind of situation. Some landlords have been forced to buy them out, and other landlords have been forced to actually let them go and waive any kind of consideration of doing a possible judgment later on. So this is a big problem because there have been a lot of talks of vouchers being submitted to landlords or through tenants to be able to cover some of the rent loss. But how is that going to affect the people that already lost all the rent and the people just moved out? In this case, a month before the moratorium is over. In some cases, it'll be a couple days before the moratorium is over. We don't know. We don't know. This is completely up to the elected officials and the lawmakers and the people setting up stimulus to make that decision. And quite honestly, I don't feel very confident of the people making the decisions actually making the right decisions. That's my pessimistic self talking right now. I don't know if this is actually going to go through. I hope I am tremendously wrong. And I brought this up last week. I don't like to be wrong. Everybody always wants to be right. But in this case, I hope I am so wrong. I hope that I'm being, the most pessimistic. I'm being the most horrible human being as far as an outlook of what our judicial system works like and our government works like. I hope that I'm completely in the wrong. Unfortunately, I'm a realist, and I think that I'm right on target with what I'm saying. And if I'm not exactly on target, I'm pretty close to it. Again, you don't agree with me? Call me out on it. Comment. Here, we got a phone number here. It's 516-623-1240. You disagree with me? You want to talk to me live on the radio? Give me a call. Again, the number is 516-623-1240. You don't feel confident about calling in? Leave a comment. I'll answer. I don't shy away from comments, good or bad comments. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, that's okay. I strongly believe, and I'm a firm believer in we all have the right to agree to disagree. But the one thing I won't tolerate, and I've made this very vocal, and I've been very animated about this, the one thing I won't tolerate is if every situation and every sector, person, segment of business, housing is not looked at in an equal fashion. I really believe, and there needs to be a steady, even hand all across the board. So if you're going to treat one segment of the population one way, you need to do it the same way all across the board. You can't pick favorites, and you can't pick and choose who you want to, how you want to go about it. It's not appropriate. It's not right, and it's not a way to keep a sustainable society and community going. Because here's the other. Now I'm going to get animated. You know what? I'm going to get animated because I'm going to say one thing. This is not the fault of many tenants. The tenants that are affected by the coronavirus, COVID-19, and truly are out of work, and they're not getting unemployment anymore, and they have no way to be able to put food on their families' tables. They're not at fault. Don't get me wrong. They're not at fault. Same way the landlords that have the same kind of scenarios and same kind of deals that they have to deal with, it's not their fault either. What's happening, though, is because of these uneven laws, the government, the elected officials, the governors, the senators, everybody that's part of this whole lawmaking, decision-making process is causing a rift and an unnecessary animosity between landlords and tenants, where they would never have had this kind of situation before. You know why it's happening? Because of human nature. When you turn around and tell somebody that is not necessarily the most hardworking person, not necessarily the kind of person that always decides to do the right thing, not necessarily the person that will do everything on the up and up. When you give them the opportunity to not pay their rent scot-free, because that's basically what's happening, they're getting that opportunity scot-free, they're going to take advantage of it, where in the past they wouldn't have, because there's a reaction for every action. In the past, if somebody didn't pay the rent, they had the opportunity to get evicted. You just took that away from them. You had the opportunity to put a judgment on that person, which held that person in check. That lapse in judgment that the tenant might have had at one point or another because they just didn't want to pay would get thought through, and they would do what is necessary to be done and fill their obligations because they didn't want to have any kind of detrimental action or situation done to them. So it was almost like a checks and balances. But now what you're doing by telling them they can't pay rent, now you're basically giving them that opening. So they're taking the government up on the opportunity and they're not paying their rent. And now you're getting the landlords that are getting animated and aggravated with this whole situation, which is completely understandable, absolutely understandable. And anybody that can't understand that needs to sit back and reflect and understand what it means to be a human being. It's completely understandable that they're not going to be happy with that person. So now you're causing an artificial animosity where it would never existed before. And now you're putting everybody in the position to be in a very high tension kind of scenario where it could have easily been taken care of by not putting this blanket moratorium, regardless if somebody was affected or not by coronavirus, in place. The thing that makes landlords even more infuriated many times is when they see their tenants go out and work. There are so many instances of actual tenants working, never lost a day of work, kept doing whatever they were doing, especially the ones that are considered essential workers. They were doing what they had to do, and they haven't paid a day of rent since the moratorium was put in place. You have a lot of those instances. And even some of the people that did go on unemployment and did lose their jobs or were temporarily out of work were collecting unemployment. And during the times where they were collecting unemployment, in addition to what they were getting on a normal basis from New York State or whatever state they were in, they were getting a $600 boost from the federal government on their unemployment. What's the reason why they couldn't at least partially pay their landlords or work out a payment plan with their landlords or sit there and actually have a conversation and say, this is all I'm getting. What can we do? How can we work this out? Instead, you had a basic shutdown and silence coming in from one end, or just saying, we don't have to pay, so we're not paying. If anybody listening to me doesn't understand this and doesn't quite gravitate that this is actually happening, then you need to look around you a little bit deeper and stronger and come to better understanding what is happening right now. You know, Sonny, Sonny Rosario wrote, "Plan for the worst and hope for the best." I'm very much in agreement with that, Sonny. That's a very wise statement because that's where my mindset is. And again, like I said, I'm being a little pessimistic. I'm being a little bit negative, and that's not by intention. It's because I'm a realist and I'm just seeing how things are. And I've said this a million times. If landlords throughout the state and throughout the nation don't organize in a proper fashion, they will get the short end of the stick, and it will be even shorter than they will even expect. We've talked about real estate taxes. We've talked about utilities. We've talked about water. We talked about insurance. We talk about maintenance. We've talked about damages that were made by tenants that the landlords continue to have to bear the financial expense on. But what about the psychological effect? What kind of mental ramifications is this entire experience going to have on these people? We're not even looking at that. I promise you, there's going to be studies in 5 to 10 years from now that are going to say, I've said this in the past, it's going to say how messed up people psychologically have become. And the only reason I'm using the word messed up is because that's the most accurate word to use. And maybe it's not the most, articulate word to use, but that's the truth. People are going to be really psychologically messed up in 5 to 10 years. And it's sad because I'm not saying that you could avoid it 100% because everybody's trying to figure these things out as we're going. But better decisions could be made. And it's very clear that a lot of the decisions that are being made right now are due to special interests. Sad as it sounds, and that's the truth. It's because of special interests that a lot of things are happening. And if I'm wrong, again, tell me I'm wrong. Prove it to me I'm wrong. I'll say thank you. I will thank you. I will come and shake your hand, even in this coronavirus experience. I will come there and shake your hand without a glove because you proved me wrong. Because I would be so happy to be wrong for the very first time in my entire life. Again, I'm not going to spend the entire show on this topic because this is going to be a topic that's going to continue for quite some time. And there's going to be many shows that are dedicated to this. I have upcoming shows that I'm planning on having multiple housing providers and landlords and people that are involved in this whole situation, almost like a round table kind of thing. We're going to do that. We're going to be giving updates to everybody as things are going. I'm going to continue to be able to share the stories that I'm receiving from many housing providers, landlords that are out there. So we're not going to spend every single minute of every show on this topic, as deserving as it is, because there are so many other things that are happening right now in the real estate world that it would be negligent on my end to completely ignore and focus on just one topic, because the name of the show is the real estate plate. And as everybody knows, when you have a plate, there are many items on that plate. If it was just one piece of meat sitting there with nothing else around it, it wouldn't be that great of a plate. So we're going to move on to the next subject. But again, I'm not going to forget about it, and it will be brought up many times in the future. Many times. So let's give a little brief understanding of where we are in the market right now. The real estate world is definitely in a very, very topsy turvy, uncertain, chaotic time. And I'm going to say something. They're going to write books about this. They're going to make people learn from these situations we're dealing with right now. And I don't know if they're going to be able to take anything at it and not relive history again, because the one thing that I do understand, and if you're a history buff, you do definitely do understand, is that history has a way of repeating itself. We got out of a major situation. Some people call it the Great Recession. Other people like to call it the housing bust. Other people call it the great housing meltdown, the financial meltdown of 2007, 2008. And yes, people did learn. People are going to learn from certain aspects of it, but there's some things that they're not learning. And I'll say what they're not learning from. Money's getting too easy to borrow again. We had this situation in 2003, 2004, 2005, where basically if you had a pulse, you were getting a loan. If you were alive, you were getting a loan. Now it's not necessarily there right now. It's not necessarily exactly as easy as it was then, but it's getting there. The no doc loans are out there. People are getting loans without any documentation to back their financials up. As long as they have a down payment, they're getting the loans. And they're everywhere, and they're very, very blatantly in the public. There's a lot of places going on hard money loans. A lot of people did cash out refis. And that's okay now that the market's going up, because we're still going gangbusters right now, especially if you're looking at places in the outskirts of metropolitan areas, suburbs, outside of major cities. They're still going gangbusters. Don't look at New York in itself. New York City is going through a major issue, and that is a topic for a show all by itself. And I've spoken about this in the past, and I've really got in depth on this, but there truly is an escape from New York mentality still happening, and it's going to continue happening for at least the short-term future. But it's not only escape from New York, it's escape from the major metros, escape from the high taxed, high priced cities. We're getting that happening everywhere, left and right. Escape from really congested areas. We're getting this more and more and more. Jenny Palos actually messaged me, what is going to happen to the economy? Is it going to crash? Okay. So I'm going to address this. It's kind of on the topic that I've been talking about before. Jenny, if I had a crystal ball and I could actually tell you exactly what's going to happen, I'd be a very wealthy man. I would be, as much as I love Trevor and I love being in the room with him doing the real estate plate on WGBB, I think I'd be on an island by myself, not having to worry about coronavirus and not having to worry about a lot of the issues we have on a daily basis. But unfortunately, I don't have that crystal ball. But what I do have and what I can volunteer and help you is some thoughtful and well thought out projections towards what's going to happen right now. Okay. Just from the housing point of view, short term, we're not going to crash. Everybody's expecting to crash. A lot of people have been saying 2021 is going to crash. I don't believe it's going to come in that near. And the reason is on many levels. The first level is you have a lot of people that still have a need to buy houses, and they still have the financial ability to buy houses. The problem they're facing is there are no houses or not enough houses out there to fill their need. The inventory is extremely low, and you're not catching up with the demand. It's a very simple theory of supply and demand. They teach it in every single Economics 101 course. You have enough supply to fill demand, you have a nice balanced economy. However, if you have a surplus of supply and the demand's out there, then you have an economy going the other way where housing is dropping in pricing because people just don't need it and are not demanding it. But where we are right now is everybody that has been trying to find a new home or to buy a piece of property or real estate for any situation that is a necessary situation for themselves in this past year and has not found one yet are still looking for that house. They're still looking for that property. And until they find something or unless their financial situation changes, they're going to continue to want it. So they're going to need that home. You have that one aspect. The other aspect that we have that we're facing right now are extremely low interest rates. I'm getting sick of saying this, but it's the truth. We're at historically low interest rates. When you could get a loan sub 3, you're going to take it. That's as close to free money that you could possibly get. I can't see us going anywhere lower than where we've already gone. Can we go to 1%? I guess anything is possible. But if the banks are loaning at 1%, how much is the Fed loaning them the money? There always has to be a balance. So you have to have a chain of margins that the one person loaning the other or the one entity loaning the other needs to be able to make some money in order to make it even viable. So I can't see the rates dropping any lower than what they are. And if they did, you're talking about fractional. So that's keeping this market hot. As long as people can get the loans and Even though the housing prices are escalating, if the interest rates are that low, it's balancing out. That in combination, that's getting easier and easier for people to get loans. So you have those factors in place. Add on to the fact that we've been in and out of quarantines and lockdowns numerous times throughout the country in different phases in different states and different cities and at different times. The fact that we might actually go into another quarantine or another lockdown. I mentioned this before as far as it affecting the eviction moratorium. You're very welcome, Jenny. I'm going to try to add more to this for you and make my thoughts as complete as possible. I mentioned this before as we go into the eviction moratorium that we might possibly get out of the eviction moratorium, that we might possibly go into another 100-day lockdown. Now, if that happens, what's going to happen is there's going to be another pause in sales. There's going to be another pause in houses going on the market. If that happens, the people that really need to move, the people that are still in that pool of buyers are still going to be there, and they're going to grow and grow and grow. And don't forget all the people that are walking away from apartments that have accrued a good amount of money that they've been saving and got scot-free from paying their rents for months. Now they're going to have down payments. So they're going to be buyers now. Sounds crazy? Not so crazy. I've already had people come to me that save money, they've never saved money before, saying, I'm ready to buy a house. Now I got 20, 30, 40, $50,000 as a deposit, which they never had before. And it is possible for them to make purchases because not only are you getting a lot of these no-doc loans, but FHA loans are out there as well. And you could buy a place as low as 3% down. And because of the fact that they walked away and signed off from their apartment without paying the rent, and the landlord basically gave it back to them without putting a judgment, when they're doing these credit reports and checks on these previous tenants trying to be new homeowners, there's nothing on their records. There's no judgments. So they're getting away on a couple of different levels. Again, I'm not going to turn this back to that because, again, I'm going to start getting really, really aggravated and annoyed. I'm going to get to that point, but I'm not going to get to that point tonight because we got more to talk about. And we're definitely not going to be able to complete all our thoughts today. There's just so much. But as far as the economy, we're definitely not going to, it's pretty bad right now. I mean, unemployment rates are still high. Businesses are closing left and right. Last projections we had in New York, about 4,000 businesses will never reopen after this pandemic is done. That's up to now. Could be a lot more by the end of the day. There's going to be a lot of issues. But as far as the housing market is concerned, they're going to be affected a little later on than the rest of the economy. Surely for the fact and the basic principle of supply and demand. And artificial money. The government, the officials, they're going to want to keep propping up every single sector as much as they can in order not to have a complete meltdown and a complete failure. Same way they've been propping up the stock market. Right now, if you've been buying since February, March, you're doing pretty good in the stock market. Is that going to continue? Is that going to be forever? History dictates that, nope, you're going to probably have a major correction. Now, when that major correction comes is probably when the artificial stimulus and the artificial money stops being printed. We don't have control when that happens, but we have more. But the government has control when that happens, and they'll dictate when that happens. So we don't have a lot of sunny days to predict. We could have a lot of flatline and a lot of coasting over the next near future, months, maybe a year, maybe even 2 years. But sooner or later, reality is going to hit. Everything's going to have to adjust. And we're going to have to get a real understanding and put together plans that are going to put us in the right path. And this coming from a guy that doesn't have the answers. I'm not going to pretend that I'm the guy with all the answers and end all solutions to the problems we're facing. But I've thought through it. And I think that anybody listening here can, whether you agree with me or you don't agree with me, there's some validity to what I have to say. And if a guy like me that doesn't have a position and is not in charge of entire municipalities, states, cities, governments can come up with some valid solutions, then why can't the officials that we're dealing with, the ones that have been elected to represent us, come up with some valid solutions? It's a question, something for everybody to think about. And I'm sure that many people are at their dinner table talking amongst themselves with their friends and their family have had the same kind of thoughts and the same kind of conversations. Now, that being said, oh man, this is what happens. I go on these rants. I go on to these thought patterns that get me to elaborate more and more on what my thoughts are, and I don't give myself enough time for many things. So I want to just jump into one last thing this show before we come to an end, and give give everyone an understanding of some of the things that have been investigated, and come to a better understanding of how certain aspects of our real estate business works. Now, for everybody that's not a professional, that's not a real estate agent or broker, or not they're really knowledgeable of how the real estate world works, every region, every area that realtors are involved in, at least the major ones, have boards, realtor boards, which also have MLS listing platforms and boards with their own guidelines. Now, what an MLS is, it's a multiple listing service. And what the nature and the thought process of having multiple listing service is to have a platform and a place for all realtors within the region to be able to list the properties that they have for sale, share them out throughout the fellow realtors, and also have a common place where the consumer is able to search for them. Now, I've gotten into this in the past of how the MLS boards have sold out all their members to third-party sites such as Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. The list goes on and on. This show is, there's definitely not enough time to get into that. And people definitely know how I feel about that. But the one thing I have been in a position to look into over the past few weeks, maybe a couple months, is there are some very questionable practices that are enforced, and they're actually putting realtors in a position to have a conflict with what real law says and what MLS and what realtor law says. Because they don't always match up for some reason. And for me personally, I always understood it this way. I always thought of realtors needing to know what the real law is and back it up with another form of ethics and a self regulated added layer of protection for the consumer. Instead, what I'm discovering is many of the rules and guidelines that are enforced by the boards are actually in a very different position than what the real law is. And I'm going to get really into this and I'm going to break this down and I'm going to make a video that's just for that reason. Just for that reason. Because I think the consumer needs to know. There's things that I'm seeing that give me a feeling of collusion. It gives me a feeling of possible price fixing. And these are my theories, but I will be able to further explain in a future video on why I came to these theories, which might actually become reality. And if they're investigated further, might prove me right. But I'm going to get into that. But I don't want to really dive into that right now because, like I said, I want to give every single topic that we speak about more and more attention. And I want to make sure that every item and every topic that we speak about gets the proper um, discussion time. Now, I just want to answer this quick question. Jenny Palios, do you think Biden will do away with the 1031? Okay, so one of the things that Biden has alluded to in the past is that he wants to do away with the 1031. Now, there's going to be a little bit of resistance from a lot of the parts of uh, the system in doing away with it completely. I feel that he'll probably have major adjustments done, and it will definitely not be the same uh, type of program that we know of. I think that by taking away the 1031, you're taking away a very vital part of our economy and productivity and increasing values for real estate and incentives for many people to want to invest in real estate. But I'm not the one that's in charge. And what I think clearly doesn't matter to the politicians. But I think there's going to be now a lot of resistance, not only from the Republicans, but also from the Democrats, because don't think that only Republicans own property and homes and have wealth. Democrats are plenty wealthy. Look at, Jeff Bezos and Eli Musk and all of them. They got plenty of stuff that they have to lose by seeing laws like this put in place. So there's going to be resistance coming from both sides. And it depends on how radical things get. And it depends on how many parts of the Congress and the Senate are taken over, and how much of a push and how much of a chaotic kind of mentality and the AOCs and the de Blasio types and all these types actually push for these things to happen. That's what it comes down to. I hope that it doesn't get taken away. My answer, I know it's not very clear, but I believe that it will not be taken away completely, but it will be heavily altered if they get their way. Now, I'm not going to say that Biden will do this because we still don't have a definitive whether he's the president or not. Nobody's conceded yet. more than likely he is the president, the way it looks. But he hasn't conceded. Trump hasn't conceded yet. So the fact that Trump hasn't conceded yet, and they don't have it official, and it hasn't been uh, put in place yet by all the states, and the Electoral College hasn't made a definitive decision yet, I'm going to move on and say we don't know yet because we don't know who the president's going to be in January. I've seen crazier things happen in the past, and I'm sure plenty of people out there have seen crazy things happen. This might be one of those crazy things that happen in our near future that will shock and upset a lot of people. And if that does happen, please replay this video at the end and and say, yeah, the crystal ball prediction that actually worked out. But that being said, we're coming to the end of the show. I want to wish everybody a good night. Have a great week. Make lots of money in real estate. We'll be back with you again next Monday, 6 to 7. And before you sign off, make sure that you press like. What do they say? Smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube. And don't forget to put your comments in. And if you do have any more in-depth questions you want to ask me, always email me at realestateplateradio@gmail.com. Have a great night, and thank you all for watching. Here we go with the Christmas music.
This is WGBB AM 1240 and AM 2.0 GFFM 95.9 Freeport, New York.